All right, man. So we got some absolutely massive news for Kamala Harris's campaign, not only in the state of Michigan, but actually a bunch of really important states. So as you guys know, RFK Jr. has decided to suspend his campaign in the swing states. He's going to remain on the ballot in other states, blue and red states, but he decided to actually drop out of the swing states where he believes he'll play spoiler. But there appears to be a catch. It looks like in most of the swing states, he can't actually get off of the ballot. So this is absolutely massive. So check this tweet out. It says, update, Wisconsin Election Commission voted 5-1 RFK Jr. must stay on the ballot, meaning Kennedy can't remove himself from a majority of the 7 battleground swing states where he said he'd hurt Trump's chances. So also it says RFK Jr. will remain on the ballot in Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. This is absolutely massive for the Kamala Harris campaign that he's still staying on these ballots, because otherwise, effectively what's happening is in all of these states, I believe Cornel West is back on the Michigan ballot. He was removed, but he's back on again. So I believe in all of these states, both Jill Stein and Cornel West are on the ballot. So what's going to happen is you're going to have these parties, these left-wing party people who are eating Kamala Harris. The thing that would have balanced that out is if RFK, and he probably eats more from Trump actually, he would be eating Trump and then they would be eating Kamala, and so it balances each other out, right? And it actually might be in Kamala's favor because the wombo combo of Stein plus West is probably weaker than RFK, right? But because he's still going to be on the ballot, this literally could save the campaign. I don't know if you guys know this, but in Michigan, in 2016, it was lost by 0.3 percentage points. By 0.3 percentage points. And so for this 1.1%, if, let's say, Hillary had netted out just like 0.3% of that, she doesn't have to get all 1.1%. All she would have to do is get a margin of 0.3-ish away from Trump, right? So 0.4 to 0.1 margin. And there's still 0.6 outstanding that could do whatever the fudge they want. Who cares, right? That's all that would matter. Now, Hillary Clinton was obviously a really, really horrible candidate. So the reason why, Jill Stein is running and gets those votes is because she's an unfathomably, historically horrifying candidate, right? So it's kind of hard to blame Jill Stein in that scenario. In this one, it's kind of different because it's like, hey, man, like literal fascism is on the line. Like you really need to, you shouldn't be running. You should be endorsing Kamala Harris. If anything, you should terminate your campaign and endorse Kamala Harris. And this one is a little bit different because Hillary Clinton was just so effing horrible, and Trump was a little bit of a, still unknown quantity at the time because, Trump likes to talk, but it's like, okay, are you actually going to do that stuff? And it's like, whoa, yeah, you're actually a fascist who's going to try to overturn the election. Also, Wisconsin barely won, 2.7. This is in 2020 with no third-party candidates. And so this is another reason that helped Biden be able to win the election in 2020 was because there was no real third-party presence. But this is massive because, like, let's say this shifts a little bit to the right this time around, where instead of, like, 0.7 in the head-to-head between Harris and Trump, let's say maybe it's 0.4. And then because of that already being 0.4 in a head-to-head, the third parties are in and they eat that 0.4 from you, you end up losing. So these margins are literally razor thin, and I think people don't understand how serious this is. But we have this article here from NPR that breaks this down. So it says, RFK may be unable to withdraw his name from ballots in some swing states. It says, after spending several months and millions of dollars overcoming onerous requirements to try to get on the ballot in all 50 states, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is now facing new barriers to get off the ballot in some states. Last Friday, Kennedy announced he was effectively ending his independent presidential campaign, encouraging his supporters to vote for him in non-competitive states, but to support Republican Donald Trump and others. Quote, in about 10 battleground states where my presence would be a spoiler, I'm going to remove my name, and I've already started that process and urge voters not to vote for me, Kennedy said. But an NPR review finds it may not be possible for Kennedy to remove his name from ballots in the majority of 7 swing states: Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, and Wisconsin. Every state has different procedures and deadlines with regard to ballot access and withdrawal, but the later a withdrawal happens, the harder it is for a state to remove a name from a ballot, said David Becker, executive director of the Center for Election Innovation and Research. Some states have deadlines that have passed, and many states have already begun the process of printing ballots. So in the state of North Carolina, for example, they already started printing out ballots that are supposed to be mailed out soon. So they're now weighing, like, all right, dude, like, if we're going to take RFK off the ballot, it's going to be hard because you have to reprint, like, thousands of ballots, basically. So in Arizona, he is actually, looks like, off the ballot in the state of Arizona. The good thing is Cornel West is off the ballot, and then I can't remember what happened to Jill Stein, if she's on the ballot or not. Florida, he's also off the ballot. The polls actually in Florida and in Texas as of right now, I don't know if this is going to change, but like in the Florida polls here, you can see that, the margin is better typically when there is like this head-to-head is, the head-to-head margins of 8-4, less than 5-3 for the head-to-head or for the overall polls with all of the candidates in them. Same thing it looks like also for Texas. I don't think Texas are swing states. They're kind of, I call them fugazi swing states. They're kind of like fake swing states. But you can see here +3, +5 versus 7 and 5. So closer margins, right, for the overall polls versus just the head-to-head poll numbers. So we can also just kind of see that happening where, shoot, like I wish he was on the Fugazi swing state polls or the ballots, because then it would make it even closer where it's like maybe instead of 2 or 3 in Texas, maybe it gets within less than 2 or something like that, or Florida. As of right now in Georgia, he's not appearing, but also West and Stein are not on it. But we have to wait to see what Rafi is going to do. His decision, I think, has to come out at some point. But we'd have to see, what will end up happening based on what Raffensperger says. But if all 3 of them are off the ballot, at least it balances out. I think the worst case scenario is if Raffensperger is like, hey, we're gonna keep Stein and West on the ballot, but hey, we're gonna take Kennedy off. So I'm like, fudge, man. Michigan, it says Kennedy must stay on the ballot in Michigan, where he obtained ballot access through the Natural Law Party, a minor political party, instead of the more difficult independent petition process. Michigan state law prevents minor party nominees from withdrawing after being certified. In Nevada, it says also too late for him. There's also a help. I haven't checked exactly with the Nevada polls to see how much of a stark difference it makes. You can also check the numbers. So she has the big leads in the Focal data polls, but there seems to be kind of comparable in terms of the leads, although maybe it's a little bit better in the head-to-head versus those. But he can't get off in Nevada. In North Carolina, he can't make it. Kennedy's creation of the We the People Party in North Carolina in the short amount of time before the election meeting could likely stay on the ballot in the state. It says George Gannon said that if We the People withdrew Kennedy's nomination, state officials would have to consider if it would be practical to reprint ballots. As of Friday, nearly a third of North Carolina's 100 counties had started the printing process. So there's probably thousands of ballots that have already been printed with his name on it, and they're like, fudge, man, are we going to rewrite it? Ohio, he's not going to be on the Ohio ballot. I don't know how much of an impact that would have made. That's not even, I don't even consider Ohio a Fugazi swing state. I just consider it in a whole different tier. It's just like a red state. Pennsylvania, he's not going to be on there, it looks like, so he's not going to be on the ballot in Pennsylvania, which is unfortunate. Texas, he's also off, which really sucks. Texas could have came really close. I think RFK would have a really big impact in states like Texas and Florida, and so I really wish he was on the Texas ballot. Wisconsin, though, he's going to still be on the ballot, which is really big, and is also going to balance out the other candidates. I don't think there's any double whammies. I was looking for some double whammies where I was like, okay, maybe there's a swing state where West and Stein, or West or Stein is not on the ballot, but RFK is on the ballot, but that didn't happen anywhere. So from what I had read, any of the states where RFK is staying on the ballot, the other 2 are also on there, so there's no double whammies that I've seen. But Wisconsin was insanely close in 2020, and I would say Wisconsin, as of right now, I think is a lean red state. I think Pennsylvania is a toss-up, and Michigan is lean blue. So I think that Wisconsin is going to come really, really close, and the polling in Wisconsin is really horrible. And right now, somehow, it's a higher lead than Michigan is, which is obviously hilariously suspect, but it's just more evidence that the polling is just really bad in the state of Wisconsin. But North Carolina is probably going to be the biggest one, because we could see he only lost by 1.3. Hillary had lost by 4 points, and I would say a de facto 5 or 6 because of Gary Johnson being in the race and no Jill Stein. And so I think it's hard for me to see North Carolina not turning blue this time because of the trends we've seen. And then also there's a large demographic change where there's hundreds of thousands of people being added to the blue areas in North Carolina. So I find it really highly unlikely that it's not going to flip blue at this point based on what we've seen. Also keep in mind the Kamala Harris secret of, all the young people, the black people, etc. that are voting for her that a lot of the polls are going to miss, and, they're going to show up. So just huge news for, Kamala Harris in these states. Also, there was also this analysis that I had read where it had said that, I can't find it right now, but is this one here? So it says, per Trump campaign polling, Nevada, North Carolina, Wisconsin are the states where the most Kennedy voters had Trump as a second choice. Michigan was kind of a wash. So these are the states where hopefully there'll be a lot of, replacement. I know that a big thing you could think of is kind of he's going to urge them to be off the ballot, not to vote for him. And so I'm sure that'll have some impact. But I think a lot of his voters are going to be so hardcore, they'll still vote for him anyways. So that would be really sick if he's able to do that. So hopefully he'll still be able to pull as many of the Trump votes as humanly possible. And then NC, being the big state, if that's where, a lot of them had second choice for Trump from Kennedy, I think it'll be really huge. Same thing with Wisconsin. So really, really big news here for the Kamala Harris campaign. RF Kennedy trying to get off to help Trump, but it looks like he can't actually get off a lot of the ballots. So pretty crazy stuff going on here.